Now, for more on China at the General Assembly and the U.S.-China relationship, Joel Rubin joins me now in studio. He's president of the Washington Strategy Group and also a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Rochelle.
So as we saw there, China's State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi not mincing his words, not just on China's position, but also its rebuke of unilateralism and protectionism. What do you think stood out to you the most?
Yeah, it's quite the shift now, isn't it? For the U.S., we historically have been the leaders handling the argument that multilateralism is good. So to see China step into it, that's a bit of a sad loss for the United States, but certainly it's important to keep that flame alive. So it's good that Wang Yi did this. Hopefully, though, it will be an inclusive kind of multilateral approach and vision. Right now here in the United States, clearly there's a lot of political pressure against globalization, and that's something that we here are dealing with on a daily basis.
And we know that Wang Yi tapped on a number of issues. How do you think his overall message will be received by the global community?
Yeah, I think that there's a definitive wariness of the Chinese engagement with the world. What are the trades that China is wanting to make with countries around the world? To give an example, with Africa and development, many countries are seeking support from China, but are also wary of getting trapped into debts and loans. So that kind of relationship, China's going to have to navigate if it's going to build global confidence in its engagements with the world. And that means it needs to really engage the multilateral fora as an equal partner. But certainly the world does look for global leadership. And if the U.S. is receding, someone's going to step into that vacuum.
And speaking of leadership, we know that China is still addressing its role in climate change and solutions there. What did we hear about that?
Yeah, clearly a commitment, and definitely a commitment towards investment, but not enough of a political commitment yet by China to meet the global standards of 2% Celsius rise, and eventually getting it by 2050 to net zero emissions per country. That's something where the political pressure will continue. It's known that China is investing and installing significant amounts of solar and renewable energy, and that's a positive, but the political commitment is what the globe wants to see.
Now, as you know, China's development and its relationship with the world has really changed dramatically over the last 70 years. What are some of the issues that China is taking the lead on?
Well, China is clearly taking the lead on advancement in technology related to agriculture. It's taking the lead on energy development, and it has been engaging in the Belt and Road Initiative, which is one where we'll see where this comes out. There's a lot of concern here in the United States about whether or not that's going to give China a leg up in the region, but that's for China to decide how it wants to advance. So development in the developing world, it's not just an American concern anymore, and if China can take the lead in that, it's going to really have a significant advantage over time.
And we also saw that Wang Yi participated in several sideline meetings.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the priorities there.
Yeah, on the sideline meetings, typically states will talk about their bilateral issues, and the trade negotiations between the U.S. and China, from an American perspective, that's the issue number one. And it's unknown where this is going to come out because it, again, is a political issue. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Donald Trump in this case because he has made trade his signature issue outside of immigration and the border wall question. And he isn't necessarily going to want to give it up for nothing. He's looking for a win. He has a hard political environment now, but he's also seen as very anti-trade. So China is going to have to navigate those waters and those kinds of bilateral meetings, leader to leader, or senior official to senior official. That's where deals hopefully get done.
And we certainly heard strong words from President Trump about how he perceives China's pressure, the unfair practices, which China is also denying, and is saying, you know, it wants to pursue its own agendas as well. So having these two competing addresses so close to the trade talks, what could we be looking at then in the trade talks? What do you think this sort of sets the tone for?
Well, I think the American business community is nervous because the talks didn't come out with a specific outcome, and President Trump's language was tough, and we saw the Chinese diplomats in the audience looking very stern with some of his language. So I think there's a nervousness that maybe it will continue to be a political football, but behind the scenes, it still is encouraging to see moves by both sides to kind of tamp down the pressure just a little bit to not have the trade war completely explode and get out of hand.
And just quickly, how do you see how China and the U.S. both use their platforms at this year's session?
Yeah, this year's session, it looked like President Trump was distracted. He has in the past made very strong pronouncements about a vision of what he wanted to achieve, America first. He attack North Korea. This year he focused mostly on Iran, and it wasn't a very enveloping message, whereas China, a little broader, spoke to other countries at that event. And so from an American perspective, we're really left wondering what the U.S. vision is for the UN. The president seems to want to belittle it and push it around a little bit, but not very clear about how he wants to get things done in the multilateral forum.
All right, always good to have you, Joel Rubin there, President of the Washington Strategy Group and also a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State. Thank you as always.